Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the annual Early Childhood Alliance fundraiser and banquet. It looks a little bit different this year, of course. You're joining us on Facebook Live, perhaps seeing this on the website down the road. Tonight, we're gathered here to support ECA, of course, but to learn more about it as well. And so we have three incredible women lined up to give you more information to help you understand better what it is that ECA does, how they do pour into all of these young children across our area. We're going to hear from them right now, starting with Kendall Billows. Kendall is the chair of Spark a Future. She's the vice chair of the board of directors. Kim Sabrowski is next. She is the president of the board. And of course, Madeline Baker, the CEO of the Early Childhood Alliance. All of us know Madeline, her passion, her heart for kids. It's been so evident over the years through this work. These three ladies are going to outline what it is that ECA does and who they are. I think you're going to be really moved to know more about this organization that does such amazing things right here in Fort Wayne.
Welcome to Early Childhood Alliance's first ever virtual Spark a Future event. I want to begin this evening by thanking our talented committee for their time, their talent, and their planning our event not only once, but again in bringing it virtual due to COVID. Our committee members are as follows: Missy Copley, Sharon Eisbart, Francesca Fisher, Jill Kinder, Rhiannon Krickenberg, Jennifer Matthias, Haley Sauer, Ben Smith, Teresa Walker, and our Early Childhood Alliance staff on the committee, including Madeline Baker, Tricia Willard, Stacy Thomas, and Nick Claypool. Just to recap how we are here tonight, our committee began meeting in January of 2020 to plan our in-person event with our vendor scheduled for May 20th, 2020. COVID happened, as we well know, in March, and in May, obviously we did not have our event, and we rescheduled a second time to have an in-person event in August. Our vendor said that was not to be, and so in June, our committee regrouped to plan our event virtually, as so many others have had to in the course of COVID. So here we are. Fundraising is challenging. It's not for the faint of heart, especially with the current pandemic. But there isn't a time where it's ever been more important, especially for Early Childhood Alliance, who's kept the doors open and the lights on throughout the pandemic. So our committee, in thinking about this year's event, we raised $120,000 last year. And guess what? Our goal is to exceed $120,000 this year because we need to. We need to support this organization who has stood firm in our community with a great essential need and void. So thank you so much for supporting Early Childhood Alliance along with me and our committee, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Kim Sabrowski, and I am privileged to serve as the board chair for the Early Childhood Alliance. I would like to take a moment to express my sincere appreciation to Kendall and the events committee. They've done a great job with taking what was to be an in-person event and moving it to this wonderful virtual occasion. So we thank you very, very much for all your hard work. I'd also like to recognize our board of directors. Our board members' guidance and advocacy are significant gifts that support ECA's mission to build better futures for children. Why is this support so important? Children are our future, and ensuring quality early education makes a critical difference in their lives. Quality early education not only provides the basic skills that a child needs to be successful in school, but it's also a foundation to their emotional and social development and helps to make them successful in life. More and more business organizations are recognizing that early education today is key to a stronger workforce tomorrow. And this is where I would like to share all of the names of those sponsors for this evening's event. Our top talent investor is the James Foundation. Our workforce investor include Ambassador Enterprises, Indiana Michigan Power, PNC Bank, and Steel Dynamics. Our development level investors are Indiana Signworks, Lupke Rice Financial Investors, Michael Kinder & Son, Sweetwater Sound, and Chuck and Lisa Surak. Early education champions include Ash Brokerage, Doolin Ward Dewald, PHP, Purdue University Fort Wayne Metals, Ray Magnet Wire, Hagerman Group, Palmer Retirement Counseling, and Ivy Tech Foundation. When we work together to provide access to quality early education to all children, our families, our economy, and our communities all benefit today, tomorrow, and for future generations. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to start my brief remarks by thanking some individuals, including our board president, Kim Sabrowski, and our vice president, Kendo Dudley Billows, who also chaired the event, along with our board of directors and the committee members who have really dedicated their times, especially in these uncertain times. My special thanks goes to Curtis Smith, who's been our MC for 7 years, and now our creative partner, Punch Films, who have guided us with our production process and helped us launch our very first virtual event. No doubt, pandemic has brought pressures and stressors to many of us, including ECA. But what did happen was that childcare sector became an essential service provider. With that said, Early Childhood Alliance childcare centers have been open throughout these uncertain times, and with support from our board of directors and key funders, we were able to manage by having our teachers in the classrooms provide continuous services with comfort and care in spite of their concerns and fears of their own. And then our educators out in the field came up with some creative ways to reach out to communities, including the providers and families. And of course, our support team, who ensured that the programs all become success. There's a silver lining in the pandemic in that there have been increased attention and recognition of childcare by the business leaders and employers to ensure that their workforce needs are met, while at the same time their business strategies are also supported, and also for economic well-being. Thank you for your support tonight. Your investment is supporting the current workforce while we spark a future for young children. I would love for you to enjoy and also support the good cause for Early Childhood Alliance and bid.
Normally, we would all be together, but of course in 2020, that is not a real option. So we're here together virtually. And the work that we're here to gather around tonight and to support is as important as ever, maybe even more important than ever. Your support of the Early Childhood Alliance is critical. The work that they do in our community is vital. They've been doing it for 67 years, being advocates for our children, pouring into the education of our children, making our community better and stronger. And our community, all of us, we need to come around ECA and support them more than we ever have, because the need here in 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, is incredible. It's been a blow to the economy, of course. COVID-19 continues to affect all areas of life, and ECA is no different. These early years that they invest into, they just could not be more important. Pandemic or not, those first couple years of childhood development, they set the stage, they set the table for an entire lifetime of learning. And what they do at Early Childhood Alliance is the kind of work that we have to make sure continues, whether there's a pandemic or not. We've got to support their investment in to early childhood and to children across all of our communities. So thank you for being with us tonight. We hope that this is a night for you to learn more about what the ECA does and a chance for you to support this incredibly important work. You know, it's one thing to hear someone like me tell you that those early years, developing kids in those first few years of life is important. It's another thing when we can hear it from experts, and we have one of the leading experts in our region, Dr. Tony Giaquinta, with us tonight. Tony is a local pediatrician. He's board certified by the American Academy of Pediatrics. and he is a graduate of the Indiana University School of Medicine and a doctor with Parkview Physicians Group. He is an expert and a wonderful doctor and works with children day in and day out. It is his passion and his life's work, and he is going to tell us the importance of what Early Childhood Alliance does.
Greetings, my name is Dr. Tony Giaquinta. I'm a pediatrician in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the past president of the Indiana chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I am privileged to take care of about 3,000 young brains in this community, and I am here today to talk about why early childhood matters. Today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about how the brain grows rapidly in the first 5 years. We're going to talk about why early experiences can change brain development. And most importantly, we're going to talk about why this community, Northeast Indiana, is responsible for promoting healthy brain development in our children, and why that is critical for a healthy, thriving community. Okay, so let's get going. How do we measure how a brain is growing and developing? Well, first of all, we physically measure it. Brain development occurs rapidly in early childhood, such that a brain's weight triples by 12 months of age. A brain's weight is actually 90% of its adult weight by the time they are 5 years old. We measure, as pediatricians, a young child's head circumference beginning at birth as a way to track brain development, because the size of the skull is based upon the size of the brain. Okay, but let's go take a closer look at what's happening inside the brain. We are born with almost all the brain cells or neurons that we have in life. The brain growth isn't also about growing neurons, however. It's about growing these. What do you see here? You notice that these black dots are actually the same from the newborn baby to the 3-month-old. But what has changed are those connections spanning, reaching out, spidering out from each neuron to each neuron, forming connections. These connections are the basis of forming new skills in life. So when you come to me, I'm going to ask you questions like, what is your child doing? But what I'm really asking is, what are these connections forming inside your brains? Now you can see the exponential increase in connections from one neuron to the next neuron. But what happens by the time the child is 6 years old is dramatically different. You might look at this slide and see, oh my gosh, these connections are withering away. But when you look closer, you notice that those connections are thicker, they're stronger. What has happened? Well, the brain has adapted. It has chosen connections that it's using over and over again and strengthening them. And it's also taking away some of those connections that they don't use very often and sometimes might not be adaptive. In fact, the big question is are these connections healthy or are they maladaptive? And that depends on the child's early experience. Are we looking at a positive action like sharing, being strengthened through positive reinforcement? Or are we looking at a temper tantrum, getting that maladaptive tension that they don't deserve, but instead we're still continuing to scold the child or give them the attention for those temper tantrums? And those are the new skills that are forming. It all depends on a child's early experience. And this much is clear. The brain's ability to form those healthy, strong connections are the healthiest before they enter kindergarten. So now we're going to talk about sensitive periods in a brain's early development. This slide shows examples like hearing and vision, how the sensitive periods are really early on in the child's life, such that the hearing and vision skills form most importantly in the first 5 years, and after those first 5 years, not much is changing. But what about a child's behavior? Here we look at other skills like habitual ways of responding and emotional control, again highlighting that in the first 5 years, there is big ability or plasticity in the child to adapt and change those behaviors for the good. But after 5 years, those behaviors are rather locked and loaded. There's not much growth from here on out. So this is pruning in a more concrete view. Basically, this picture shows us that it is much easier for a child to develop social emotional skills when their brain is most sensitive to developing these neural pathways during the first 3 to 5 years of life. After this sensitive period, pruning decreases a child's receptivity to learning these skills, and teaching these skills become much more challenging. If strong social emotional skills are not established early on and a child has difficulty interacting with others and controlling their emotions, it is much more difficult for them to learn more advanced cognitive skills as they become older, such as math, reading, and language skills. So the big take home here is if strong social emotional skills are not established early on in life, it is much more difficult to change those skills as they enter kindergarten. So let's talk about the 3 types of stress. The first is a positive stress. These are brief increases in the heart rate, our blood pressure goes up, our brain is firing on all cylinders. This is good stress. This is stress that all of us experience from time to time. The second is tolerable stress. These are children that are exposed to some real traumas in their lives, and except for some supportive relationships, would otherwise really succumb to what's next, which is called toxic stress. This is the stress that I'm most worried about in children, because this is a pervasive, all-encompassing stress that children cannot get away from. It results in a cortisol level that continues to be elevated, keeps that heart rate up, keeps that blood pressure up, and over years and years is maladaptive to that child. What we see is real changes in a child's physiology as they are exposed to that cortisol time and second, every day of their lives. And it results in increases risks of heart attacks, high blood pressure, strokes, and diabetes. Another way to look at this stress is taking 3 children and placing them in the deep end of a pool. Now, when you jump into the deep end, your first response is to get nervous. This is stressful. For some children, they have skills, they have resources, they know what to do when they're in that deep end. They've had swim lessons, they've had coaches, they have all the resources they need to get up to the surface of the water and swim to the side. The stress is gone. For other children, that stress is more pervasive. They jump into that water and they can't escape. But luckily, they have a life jacket. They're floating to the surface, they are not drowning. That life jacket, what we will find is a supportive relationship. The third child jumps into the water and they start to drown. They are surrounded by their stress, and despite all of the kicking and yelling and thrashing their arms, they are unable, without exhibiting tons and tons of effort, to keep their head above the water. They can't get to the side and they need help. The analogy mostly fails here when we don't recognize that kicking, screaming, yelling child. When we see these children in classroom, we see them acting out. We see them self-isolated. We see them looking like all of these different behaviors, but we can't always tell if they are drowning or not. This is what we call being trauma-informed, and it is so important for us to recognize how early stresses are maladaptive to that child, but most importantly, what we can do to rescue them. And what we find is that stresses can sometimes be mimickers of other behaviors. What I find helpful is sometimes identifying these types of stresses with our favorite Disney characters, which we all know are exposed to some major adverse childhood experiences. Let's take Aladdin. This is a child that is stealing, living in poverty. He is constantly getting in trouble. He is acting out, impulsive, jumping through windows. This is some of our ADHD children that we see every day in our classroom. Is it really a medicine that's going to help him, or is it just based on his adverse childhood experience of being a poor orphan in a community living on his own? Another example is the child that just seems a little aloof, a little distant. He's trying to get away. He's trying to escape adverse childhood experience that has been haunting him. And instead, he goes off and starts hanging out with other kids and doing drugs and going all Hakuna Matata. This is Simba, right? This is the kid who had his father pass away at a young age. He escaped to the jungle and is now doing Rastafarian things with Timon and Pumbaa. We see examples of this as well in school. And then finally, we have the more obvious cases of our Disney characters like the Elsas, where they just go from hot to cold, just like that. 1 second, she's polite and happy. The next moment, she's breaking down and freezing down the entire village, letting it go all over the place. And this is our Elsa. Abuse and neglect are some of the more common examples of adverse child experiences, otherwise known as ACEs. But there are other forms of household dysfunction that can also hinder early brain development, such as violence, substance abuse, mental illness, separation, divorce, incarceration, or anything else that can cause unrelieved chronic stress. So let's talk about toxic stress in terms of how we overcome them. Well, as I mentioned, a supportive adult is almost always the cause of rescuing a child from their toxic stresses. Where can that supportive adult be found? Well, most commonly, it is found in schools. During the COVID pandemic, we shut down schools. Now we're looking at about 5 months, and we're just looking to restart, and hopefully we've restarted by the time of this presentation. I say hopefully because children need schools for so much more than education. Children rely on schools for community and for basic needs such as nutrition, physical activity, socialization, and many other small daily challenges and successes that help them grow and develop. Children with disabilities or special needs require services that are extraordinarily difficult to deliver remotely, and it is virtually impossible for younger children to learn remotely, even with an engaged adult at home to help. This is an easy example to show that when a child is exposed to repeated toxic stresses, it is maladapted to that child's brain development. Okay, so let's talk about why some kids throw chairs in kindergarten and some don't. Let's talk about why some have supportive relationships and some are unable to. The answer is commonly found in poverty. If I were to ask you what percentage of children ages 0 to 5 are living in poverty, what would you say? The answer is 1 in 5 children in our community are currently living in poverty. But not all children living with high ACEs do develop these toxic stresses. Some are able to overcome them, but not without supportive relationships. How are they rescued? I love this slide from Harvard because I think that it pinpoints exactly what is needed. And it states, every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult. How can you be involved in helping rescue children? Well, first of all, being a caregiver, being a good uncle, a good aunt, a good cousin, or a good neighbor. There are many different things that you can do to help promote being that supportive caregiver. I always recommend examples like making sure that you are physically present with your child. I call it disconnect and reconnect. Make your child your screen. Promote things like dancing, cooking, karaoke, reading. All of these things are taking a child away from one pinpoint object and expanding their brain to maximize their sensory input, their hearing, their vision, their tactile resources. All of these things are going to grow the brain much more than a screen. And I always talk about making sure that it's imagination that comes first. This is what Fred Rogers taught us. And this is what's so important about his shows, is that he always delves into an imaginary land where our brain can roam wild and grow. And finally, it's through relationships that we grow best and learn the best. The other way that we can help promote resiliency is by promoting early childhood development. High-quality early childhood education is one of the most important and critical ways that we can save these brains. Parents and families support brain development through safe, nurturing environments in the home, but communities can support early brain development by offering the high-quality early childhood education. And the stakes are high. What percent of children in Indiana were retained in kindergarten? The answer is 4.4% of students, costing Indiana $23 million. In fact, a study was done that shows that when we invest in children, we all win. For every $1 that we invest, we get $4 back in a child that is healthy, smart, growing, invested, and giving back to their community. If you aren't already promoting this, make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure that every child has access to high quality early childhood. And it starts right here. You can look up anywhere on the website for On My Way Pre-K. This is our own state initiative to make sure that every children is off to the right start, saving those brains, rescuing those brains, and promoting critical learning so that when they start kindergarten, they're off to the right step. So now we know that healthy connections in a brain depend on a healthy, nurturing relationship with a caregiver or supportive adult. A lot of times this can be found in early pre-K, but many times it's found also in schools. With coronavirus, I really worry as a pediatrician that some of my children with their life preservers attached are now being wrested away and they are going to start to drown. We as a community need to make sure that these children are given the resources to stay afloat. So when we talk about closing schools, we need to recognize that we're not only maybe sacrificing education, but we're sacrificing a child's resiliency. We're sacrificing a child's activities and sports that give them self-esteem. We're asking them to sacrifice their friends, their coaches, their peers that help support them and prevent them from having anxiety, which leads to depression, and depression which leads to an increased societality. We have not yet lost a child due to the illness of coronavirus, but we have lost some teenagers in our community due to suicide. And that is the thing I am most worried about when we talk about closing down schools to protect against coronavirus, that we're missing the big picture and that we're not measuring the full measure of a child's health. So please join me in making sure that we support all of our community initiatives that lend supportive adults. And these might be organizations like Early Childhood Alliance that are promoting early childhood development. It might mean being an advocate at the state level to make sure that we are offering early childhood education to as many children in the state as possible. But most importantly, it means trying to find opportunities to be that supportive adult. Because in the end, it's our community, our own commonwealth that we are trying to foster and protect. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk about this subject. I love this city because of organizations like this that allow us to get together and talk about what really matters most.
Wow, I love hearing the heart and passion of Tony. What an incredible leader in our community. And I love hearing the why of the work that ECA is doing. Let's talk a little bit more about the how. I'm standing at the Beacon Learning Center here. What a beautiful facility it is. It's one of two nationally accredited facilities that the Early Childhood Alliance has, the other on East Wayne Street, the Downtown Learning Center. These two centers combine to service about 250 kids every day. That is an incredible impact on the lives of our kids. Last year, they initiated a center support team that addresses the needs of kids in that birth to 3-year-old range. Such an important time and such an overlooked time in the development of children before they get into preschool and kindergarten. I love the outreach programs of ECA that have really worked hard to provide more resources and support to a child's first and perhaps most important teacher, the parent. There is such a great connection between ECA and parents in our community. They've used outreach to come up with in-home visits, resource information distributed through the Parkview Health Birthing Centers, and they recently launched Spark Kits. Wow, what an important tool for all of these kids. You can learn more about that at sparkafuture.org. There are so many various ways that ECA is investing into these young lives. That's what I love about the how. It's not a cookie cutter approach because they service so many different kids of different backgrounds, geographically different areas, different needs, different educational levels when they come into the ECA programs. It's just powerful to see how they not just blanket our community, but cater it to each kid to make it an individual and unique experience that helps them the way they need to be helped. To support the work of ECA tonight, we have 4 great auction items for you, and especially during the pandemic, this is when we need to come along and provide financial support. I'm going to tell you about the first 2, and then we're going to watch a short video. The first one is a star-studded evening featuring diamond earrings. This is from Peter Franklin Jewelers. Surrounded by sparkles and glitter, host a private party at Peter Franklin Jewelers. You or someone special to you will light up the room with elegant diamond stud earrings valued at over $700. Show them off to your guests as you enjoy hors d'oeuvres and beverages for 20 of your closest friends. What a great item. What a unique item. You don't see that very often at auctions. Our second item is a fall fancy s'mores party thanks to Scott and Catherine Hill and their family. Spark a future with a bid to watch the sparks fly at the Philo T. Farnsworth House. Enjoy all the s'more fixins plus fancy hot drinks of hot buttered rum and spiked hot cocoa around a warm fire pit. Toast among your party of 8 as you walk about the backyard of this historic Fort Wayne landmark. Wow, two great, unique items to bid on tonight. Remember that your bids go to support the Early Childhood Alliance. All these funds pour into the work being done here at ECA. And you don't have to get your bid in right now. You've got a little time, in fact, right through Friday at 8 o'clock. So get your bid in now, but then keep an eye on it over the next couple of days. Friday at 8 is when the auction will end, and we're gonna be accepting bids here over the next couple of days. So I encourage you to get them in. You're seeing the website right now on your screen. That's where you go to bid on these items. We're going to talk about the other two auction items in a few minutes, but right now I want to share with you a short video that features the faces, the lives being touched by the work here at ECA, and you're going to hear from some of the parents and some of the staff as they tell you a little bit about the importance of what happens here at the Early Childhood Alliance.
You cannot underestimate children, like especially young age. They're very smart and they need to be challenged with how they learn. Everything is like they are so curious in everything, and you will be amazed how their words can say it.
Besides learning to share, she's learning how to express her emotions with her friends.
This pandemic is different. Mostly mom works at home and the children stay home too. So the children need some socialization with their peers.
When we first got that list of like, here are the essential businesses that are allowed to stay open, I was so glad that daycare centers were considered essential. I don't know what we would have done without them.
We were essential workers, so we never were laid off. We had to work the entire time. Being able to still bring her to the same environment that she's used to, that was extremely helpful with all the changes for a 3.5-year-old.
When they were able to come here like they always did every day, it helped children to be able to feel safe and know that people were around them that cared about them and were going to be providing what they always had been being provided for.
Children live in the present moment, but talking to the children about the new normal thing during pandemic, other children adjust easily to all the changes, and some increase negative emotions such as stress and frustrations.
We've been really pleased with the flexibility with our schedules, and just I can't say enough great things about the teachers.
Wow, I worked here for 7 years, almost 7 years actually, but this is the best place.
It's just amazing to have a place like ECA where kids can come to and they enjoy coming to. And when I pick up London, she's always happy and in a good mood.
ECA is a wonderful child care provider. Workers here, they have a lot of experience. People work here for 30 years, 25 years. It's really amazing.
ECA has the experience, the passion, and the expertise.
Everything's about the children, making sure they have a safe learning environment, make sure they're getting everything they need.
Year has looked a little different for them than normal, but I imagine that their costs for running the school have not changed and that they still have great needs.
Anybody who is really looking for a way to support the future and build on the education of our future workforce and the future of our world, it would be early childhood.
That is why we're here tonight, to support those kids, to pour into their lives. We're going to hear from a couple of teachers here in just a moment, but I want to tell you about the two remaining auction items, another pair of unique auction items that you don't get to bid on every day at every event. So listen up, here is our third auction item. This is a unique experience. It's a lake getaway, and it's from Kendall Billows, the Spark a Future Event Committee Chair. Relax at the Billows Cottage on beautiful Sylvan Lake. a 667-acre all-sports lake in Rome City, just 36 miles from Fort Wayne. Planned for overnight accommodations for 6 or 7 guests. Enjoy a continental breakfast, cookout for lunch, ice cream snack at Sundays on Sylvan, dinner, and a well-stocked cooler of refreshments. Experience your getaway on the water with the pontoon boat, speedboat, tubing, floating, swimming, fishing, kayaks, or on shore with the hot tub, fire pit, and cornhole. Take in local nature by biking or hiking nearby Noble County trails at Gene Stratton Porter State Park or the Boy Scout Island Nature Preserve. You can continue your experience with live music and refreshments just minutes away at Sylvan Cellars. The Cellars Champagne bus will pick you up and drop you off at the guest cottage. What an incredible item that is. Get your bids in now and keep an eye on that. Remember, it goes until Friday at 8 o'clock. And our fourth and final item is another unique experience, something you don't find at every event. It is an Italian cooking experience and a class, Dinner for 6. It's being presented by Doug and Jill Kinder and Ilaria and Tiziana Briozzo. Imagine yourself in Italy as you enjoy a very special Italian dinner with an Italian chef cooking for you at the home of Jill and Doug Kinder. Ilaria will cook and offer Italian cooking lessons for 3 couples. Wine pairings will be provided by a licensed sommelier. So that is going to be an incredible night. Again, you see the website on your screen right now. And remember that the auction is going on right now. You can get your bids in tonight, but bids are accepted through Friday at 8 o'clock at night. So you've got a couple of days. Bid tonight and then keep an eye on your item. Come back and make that last minute bid on Friday evening. We've seen some of the kids. We've seen the impact that ECA has. Now we want to hear from a couple of teachers talking about the incredible services provided here at Early Childhood Alliance.
We're building them up to have a better future in school, beyond that, everywhere.
To make them successful, and
yeah,
we want them to exceed as in elementary school and middle school and high school and beyond. And it starts at a very young age. Even infants can benefit from it.
For families, I think it is great for them to have a place to take their child that they can, as I said before, that they can develop in social, emotional, cognitive, physical development, that they can develop in all those ways, plus feel comfortable going to work and being able to be productive at their job, knowing that their child is very well taken care of. They are learning, they're playing, they're making friends, they're making relationships with the teachers.
To be academic and go on in elementary school, but they definitely need the social and emotional aspect, because that carries them and has a lot of weight also. So if they have a firm foundation in that, then it will help with their academics later on.
They have an imagination to make anything what they want.
Yes.
They really do.
Thank you, Lori and Debbie. The phenomenal work you do with our kids is so appreciated. Tonight, we have got to come around ECA, put our arms around them, and support them financially. We've given you the 4 featured items of the auction, and not everyone's going to win an auction item tonight. So if you're looking for a way to support this great work of ECA, we've got a way for you to help. This funded need portion of the night is critical. Our goal is to raise $40,000 tonight for the vital work happening at the Early Childhood Alliance. And you might be wondering, what does that work look like? Well, we know the investment into the lives of kids, but when you run 2 busy learning centers, there are all kinds of other needs where money really helps. Just like our homes, we're all running into these kinds of things. Appliances go out, a flooring needs repaired, some of this equipment behind us, this playground equipment, it gets a lot of wear and tear and occasionally has to be replaced. These are the kinds of things that ECA is always trying to tackle in a responsible way, but finances are needed to do that. And so tonight, that $40,000 goal for funded need is critical to making sure that they can still meet the needs of kids in our area. You're seeing the website again on your screen. It's where we have those 4 featured items, all the silent auction items as well. But it's also where you can go to help us meet that goal of $40,000 as we fund the need of ECA and the need of providing to our children. Thank you for being with us tonight. Your presence here to support ECA means so much to the organization, so much to the people who invest their lives into the lives of these children. Don't forget that the auction is going on through Friday at 8 o'clock in the evening. So we have those 4 great featured items, and we've got about 20 or so silent auction items that you can still bid on right through Friday evening. So if you've got a bid in, don't forget about it. And don't worry, you will get a notification if you've been outbid, and that will drive you right back to the site so that you can hopefully swoop in and get it. So keep an eye on those items over the next couple of days and bid often and early, as we are here to support ECA. Thanks again for being with us tonight. We hope that you have a great evening and a great week. Thank you for supporting the Early Childhood Alliance.